Welcome in, dads, to the Full Force Fathers podcast. I'm so glad you're here today. This is episode 24. Welcome in, Dave. How you doing today?
Good, Brett. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. I think we need to do a theme here. Last week was 23, and I feel a new trend coming for our podcast. Episode 24. Can you give me a famous athlete, number 24?
Well, this will probably start an argument. Jeff Gordon's probably the best 24 I know.
The Rainbow Warrior. I was just thinking the same thing. He's the first name that popped in my head, too. Wasn't?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the best all time, right?
One of the best NASCAR drivers all time, but we're missing one because I don't really think of Kobe wearing 24. I always think of the number 8, but Kobe wore 24. And then didn't Ken Griffey Jr. wear 24? I don't know about that. Maybe.
He did. Yep.
So
he did. He wore 24.
There's 3 Hall of Famers right there that with the old number 24. So next week we'll have to think of something new on 25.
I'm just trying to think. Who are the other 24s that are out there?
I don't know if I can even,
I'm drawing a blank.
In football, what is 24? Is that running? Would that be running back or is that defensive back? 20 in the 20s?
I think it's a DB. Yeah, DBs.
Well, we better step up our game for next
DBs.
week. When we do 25, we have to come up with some good number 25s.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
okay.
With that being said, welcome into the show. We are excited to have you here. We got some things to talk about today. Some cool topics today we're going to touch on. Something maybe a little bit different than what we would usually talk about, but we're going to start off with a Bible verse as always, and it comes from Proverbs, and that would be Proverbs 18, verse 22. And it says, "And he who finds a wife finds what is good and receives favor from the Lord." So this proverb, I read Proverbs every day. So if you follow along, I read this last week on the 18th, which just so happened to be my wife's birthday. So we're going to give a little belated birthday shout out to Andine, the big 3-5. And it made me think, hey, I want to expand on this topic with Dave a little bit because I think it would be rather interesting to talk about wives and mothers and where they all fit into place. But any initial thoughts on the proverb, Dave?
Yeah, I think it really speaks to just, how much better your life can be with a wife in it, and how much better they make our lives as men, as fathers. And you complete sort of that nuclear family, right? And I think that's what is so special about it because things can be so much better.
Yeah, I mean, the nuclear family thing, I like what you said there, because first of all, my advice to everybody is don't watch the news, but they really are trying to break apart the nuclear family. And it's such a disservice to all those families out there working hard and husbands and wives and combos. And, so the first topic I wanted to kind of talk about is the importance of our wives in our lives. So obviously Andine turning 35, she said she felt really old this birthday. And I'm going to ask you too, 35 for me was last year, 36 for me this year. She said 35 it hit her differently, where she said she felt older when she hit 35. 34 didn't matter. And I said, I'm going to be 37 in a few months. That's going to feel old. What does 35 feel? Did you feel any different when you hit a certain age?
No, I've never felt different when I hit a certain age. I mean, I think the only one that felt different was probably 21. Just because you could do stuff that you couldn't do before legally. But that was probably the only one that felt different, but I've never felt a change. It always seems to say, I always thought that was weird when people were like, hey, do you feel older today? No, I don't feel older today. I feel exactly the same.
Yeah, it's, I think the same. To be quite honest, if anything, I feel better now at 36 than I did when I was 26. I'm a far better father, and Andine has a lot to do with that. So to stay on the topic of the importance of them in our lives. You know, that's why I say we wanted to shout out to the wives, to the mothers, to the grandmothers that are just, dude, they're so badass out there, keeping families together, keeping kids in line, keeping husbands in line, you know, and they do so much, Dave, that, you know, a lot of times it just goes unnoticed. And I don't think it needs to be that way. I think they need a little bit of spotlight. Now, my wife personally does not like any attention. And I don't want any Facebook posts. I don't want any Instagram posts. You know, that's just because my wife, Andine's an introvert, you know, but man, she deserves so much freaking credit for keeping us all together and keep us line. You know, she's literally so strong. And I don't mean physically strong. Obviously, you know, people think strength. They think, oh, well, we can pick some weights up. Andine is 10 times stronger than I am. And that is a fact. She is the most strong woman I've ever met. She's mentally tough. I've seen her deliver 3 babies. Like, I'm sorry, dude, but I'm out. Like, you know, the credit is never fully put on him.
Yeah, I said the same thing when Casey had Kendall. I'll never forget that feeling I had. I was like, holy shit, man, women are fucking strong. Like, to go through that, I don't think that's something I'd ever be cut out for, to be able to go through what they go through from the entire process, from the beginning all the way through the birth and everything that happens after the birth, you know, breastfeeding. I mean, it's just a stretch of time where mothers are absolutely incredible. And you realize in that moment how strong they actually are. And yeah, I totally agree with that. And same token here too. Things have changed since when we grew up. I mean, when I was a kid, my dad worked, my mom was home most of the time, you know, and she was able to stay home, which was great for me to be able to have my mom there. And she worked a little bit part-time here and there. And then when I left home, you know, she went back to work full-time. But now the way things are, it's really hard to do that. So there's a lot of 2-parent working households. Mm-hmm. And like, I give Casey a ton of credit because, you know, as she was teaching, she would still do all the things that a mother's supposed to do and should do, being there for her kids and working a full-time job. And sleep was at a minimum, and she pushed through. It's hard. And just, you know, the resilience that they have, how they can make our lives better, make the lives of our families better. Like, it can't go understated, because I think it does. And I think that point specifically, at least in my world, you know, knowing how she works full time and still manages all the extra stuff that she needs to with the kids, being there for their events and helping, you know, to teach them when they're home, and just continuing all that stuff is so important.
Yeah, no. And we, you know, to touch on the 2-parent work-life balance kind of thing, we've experienced it, as you know. You know, this is just another feather in the cap for Andine. I mean, there's times, you know, people that know me, you know, and people close to me that know, but, you know, there were times where Andine has carried the weight of the family, you know, and, you know, we did the 2 work thing, and then then I got a good job in auto finance and she stayed home, and then, you know, we hit some potholes along the way. I left that job, and, you know, she stepped up to the plate and went to work full time and carried my ass. You know what I mean? And it's just, it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't go unnoticed, but the dynamic of the two spouse work life thing, she also worked nights. That was another sacrifice that she deserves credit for. She worked nights for 12 years. Madison, Caroline, and Finley never went to daycare, never had a babysitter. We never had to pay for childcare because she sacrificed to go to work, and she worked all night long. Same thing like you mentioned, come home on no sleep. First thing, make sure the kids are taken care of. So, you know, she signed up for that sacrifice voluntarily to make sure that our kids didn't have to go through the daycare and in that whole rigmarole with the 2-parent working household.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I can't happy birthday, Andine, again. I've said it already. I can't speak it enough. But, you know, another thing that I think the wife, and this is, I want to keep.
So I got a question for you. Since it's her birthday, right?
Uh-huh.
So her birthday, Andine's the baker in your family. So who's making the cake for Andine?
Madison.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to hope it wasn't going to be you.
No,
okay, that's good. Well, I'm glad Andine's got somebody to make the cake because she usually puts together the best baked goods.
She is a phenomenal baker. She feeds me well for sure. But no, I will not take over any cooking duties. We for her birthday last week, we went out to dinner. We took her out to dinner, and actually the kids picked the place for dinner. So shocker, once again, her stepping aside and saying it's my birthday. Let the kids pick. It's just another way that she just keeps doing it. And it's not just her. It's so many mothers out there. I can brag on Andine forever and ever, but there's so many moms out there that do that. And a thing I want to kind of touch on too is I'm getting real nervous, Dave, moving forward as a dad, as you know, and those that listen. I have 3 girls. Madison just turned 12 2 weeks ago. Caroline's 9, going on 10, and Finley's 4, going on 5. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I am totally fucked in a few years when they are all teenagers, 2 teenagers. I don't even need to name the feminine things that are going to be happening to me. And dude, I have my perspective from 3 daughters, right? But I'm going to be leaning on Andine even harder moving forward. Dude, Madison just turned 12. I'm already terrified of all the things that are going on at 12. I can only imagine another 2 or 3 years.
It's coming.
And, and I'm really going to have to lean into her because I'm terrified. I'm sure you're terrified of it. Kendall's 9. You're not that far behind me when it comes to the female stuff.
Yeah, no, for sure. And the thing that's scary is Kendall already has a lot of the attitude, right? So I don't know how it's going to be when she's a teenager. I mean, Casey and I are like a tag team duo fight, going against Kendall. I mean, she comes at us from all different sides. So we really need to rely on each other to help balance that out.
She's a firecracker, Kendall. She's like, if in wrestling term, dude, she comes right off the top rope. She's ready to roll. She's coming with the Macho Man Randy Savage.
In, just flat.
And oh man, it's
flying elbow.
Yeah, the flying elbow from Macho Man Randy Savage. But anyways, but in all seriousness, that is a very important part of my life, and I'm not the only girl dad out there. That's a big part of what's going to happen. And I know the father, the disciplinary. We're supposed to be the strong. Yada, 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 the, discipline. No, you're not going to your friend's house. You got a curfew as they get older, but the Andine side of it and the mother side of it, they're the caring and nurturing, that comes from mom. That's hard. That's really hard for dads to be that soft, cuddly, nurturing. Everything's going to be, that a lot of that comes from the mom, and that's just natural instinct from the mother. And they don't just do that from the point of conception to childbirth, to toddlers, to 5, 6, 7, all the way up through childhood into high school, even adults. You lean on your mom, especially girls. They lean on their mom when it's time for a shoulder to cry on, or a soft touch, or a soft speak, a soft conversation. The dads are always rigid. The women, the mothers, they have that instinct. It's an immeasurable instinct.
It is an instinct, and it starts as a child. I mean, you see it from when kids are young, and boys want to pick up guns and trucks and smash stuff into each other, and girls are playing with dolls and pretending to be moms, and they have that, just like you said, that nurturing instinct. And it is something that as you grow older, you still want your mother, to be there for you, to listen to you and to help you through those situations. I would give anything to have my mom back. It's one of the things that, in this life that I miss the most, because she always was the person I could confide in and tell whatever it is I needed to. And she always made it better instantly, just made it better. Casey has a different relationship with her mother. And, but I know deep down she wishes that wasn't the case, that she wishes that she had a better relationship with her, and that things could be different, because you do. It's your mother's the person that is there for you from day one, before day one. And, should be carrying with you throughout your entire life. And I think that's the idea and the hope, right? Is that you always have that person to go to and to be that person you can always rely on and trust.
Yeah. And the other thing, I got a quick question for you in terms of the mother dynamic. How different? Because I only have girls, so Madison and Caroline and Finley. Besides Finley, because Finley's the baby and she's perfect and can do no wrong. Her and Andine are just, they're Velcro. They're stuck together all the time. How different is the dynamic for Casey when it's Kendall and when it's Bryce? Is it a completely different dynamic? Is she harder on Kendall? Is she harder on Bryce? What's the dynamic of the mother-son versus the mother-daughter combo?
Yeah, it's totally different between the two. Right now, Kendall's been tough lately. I'm not gonna lie. She's been going back and forth with Casey, and she thinks everything that Casey says to her is criticizing her when it's not the case. Casey's just trying to parent her and get her to do things the right way, but she sees it differently. She's 9 and Bryce is 6, right? So they don't get the same treatment. They're at different stages of their life. So she sees what Casey is saying and hears what Casey is saying and how she acts with Bryce, and she takes it totally different than what reality is. So I just had this conversation with Casey the other night, actually, because she was frustrated about it. And I'm like, you can't you can't beat yourself up about this. This is part of the process. This is part of that growing process. And she's trying, she's having trouble with herself right now as she's trying to figure out who she is and where she falls in place here. So, what Kendall perceives as reality is completely different than what Casey sees as reality, and quite frankly, what I see as reality too. But it is completely different, the relationship there. And I don't know if it's just because of the age gap between the two. But Bryce is a more laid back, sort of casual, kid. Kendall's very sensitive, and she's very this is the way it is. She thinks she's right all the time. She's got sarcasm that, an adult has. Mm-hmm. She's just, and part of that's a big part of that is my fault. I will take the burden of that. She's listened to me for years and years now, and she's picked up on the way I think about things and talk about things. So she is a lot like me, and she's hot-headed like me too. So that, that coupled with her age make it difficult. And for Casey and Kendall, it's different than Casey and Bryce for sure.
You hot-headed? No, you're not hot-headed at all.
I have a tendency to run hot. There's no doubt about that. But you know what? Our book recommendation last week, the You've Got This, Unlocking the Hero Dad Within. I'll tell you, when I read that book, a lot of things changed my mind. I was I was started to calm myself a little bit more, find that woo-saw inside. I actually told Casey, I said, even though it's geared towards dads, you'd probably get a lot out of this book because there is so much to it. With kids are kids, and parents just need to kind of work together to find their way through that.
Yeah, and Andine's dynamic with the 3 is all different too, right? So she expects more from Madison. She's the oldest, the firstborn, more mature. It's there's not usually any talk back, but now there's the sass coming in with her being 12 and becoming a little lady. The attention span and the temper is like Dave Fortin temperature with when it comes to Caroline, because Caroline is our middle child. She is the button pusher. She tests you 24/7. And then of course there's the dynamic of Finley, who's the baby. And it's okay. It's patience. It's, you can do no wrong. But let me tell you, for all the talk that the husband, the father's the disciplinary, I get called the softie and sometimes because Andine, when she lays the hammer down, get the hell out of the way.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah. I agree. Andine certainly is she's not afraid to put her foot down. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. She's an introvert, but when it comes to a mom, dude, she's a boss mom. She's not a cuddly, besides maybe a little bit with Finley. She's not a cuddly, kissy, lovey mom when it comes to, if you do something wrong, she's going to let you know of it. It's not going to be a hand-holding situation. It's going to be a discipline situation, which I think is great. I think that's great that she's that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all.
Yeah.
But it is different. I don't know about you, but at least in our house, I feel like the kids push back more when Casey tries to put them in line. Mm-hmm. They throw more back at her than if I come in and say something or try and be the disciplinarian. They take it a little differently between the two of us. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And the whole point, guys that are listening to this first 15, 16 minutes of talking is it's not a brag on our wives. It is a little bit of a brag on our wives, but it's more or less like we need to just show some appreciation for them a little bit more. And I feel like sometimes I lack it because I'm always going with work or this or that. And behind the scenes, she's keeping everything chaos, Brett Aragoni chaos in order. And sometimes, I just want all the dads out there to stop for a second. And with her being her birthday last week, it made me stop for a second and appreciate your wife. You took vows, maybe take her on a date, get a babysitter for the night or do something fun, take her on an adventure. Just appreciate, say thank you to her more because it goes a very long way.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, yeah, Casey and I just celebrated our anniversary, and we just went out to dinner one night. We were gone for, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours. And even that, it's just nice getting out for a little bit without the kids, chance for us to connect and focus on each other because you know how chaotic life can be. And it's nice when you can just spend a little bit of time, show appreciation to each other because you're both working your asses off. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, I told Dave to come up with 5 things. So in honor of her birthday and just in honor of mothers everywhere that are carrying a lot of the weight alongside their husbands, I came up with 5 ways that my wife in particular makes me better. I'll go with my 5. Dave can go with his 5. And I want you dads out there to go write it down. Write a little thank you note. Write down something on a piece of paper and leave it underneath her pillow so she sees it before she goes to bed, or leave it on the kitchen table if you're walking out the door for work. I'm telling you, it'll go a long way. But my 5 ways that Andine makes me better. She keeps me working because she motivates me to keep her home. She takes care of the kids. I, at the very least, can keep her supported when she's taking care of the kids. She's doing the homeschool thing. It is my job. I always say it's my duty to financially provide so she can stay home and be the stay-at-home mom that she loves to be. That is not a bad thing out there, moms that listen to the show. Being a stay-at-home mom is not a bad thing. I know it's frowned upon in the media now, but it is not a bad thing. So if you can stay home and your husband can support the income that way, that is a great thing. And that's one of my main ways that she can make me better. Another way she can make me better is she feeds me. Yeah, it's funny. Andine's a great cook. I am blessed. I have a great cook. She feeds me every night, every day for lunch, whatever the case may be. Another thing, number 3, she keeps me exploring. Andine loves to travel, and we have an RV. We love to go all over the country with our RV. So she keeps me exploring and keeps me ready to go at a drop of a hat. Number 4, she supports me in all my choices. All right. I have taken on the burden of the one financial income stream right now. She supports me in everything that I do when it comes to that. And then the 5th thing, maybe the most important, she challenges me every day to be a better dad. She makes me a better dad, but she challenges me to be a better dad every day. So those are my 5, Dave. What are your 5?
Yeah, my 5, the first one is that she keeps me motivated. She's always coming up with ideas, creative ways for me to branch out and do more. And she just keeps me going in that regard. Casey supports me more than I could ever imagine someone would. I think most of the time she believes in me more than I believe in myself, which is something that's really hard to find. So she certainly supports me very well. She gets me to do things I wouldn't normally do on my own. She likes to go try different things. She's much more personable than I am, social. So, she'll want to go do fun things or try new vacation spots or try new foods, things like that. And that's always fun. And it's stuff I wouldn't normally do. So that's cool. One of the big ones for me is that she dreams with me. She dreams. We chat about dreams all the time when we're on our walks together, when we're just sitting around the house together, things that we want to do together. So that's always a fun thing for me because without dreams, we've talked about in the past, you don't have anywhere to go. And then, she's always helping with the kids. Like I said, she works a full-time job. And yet she's there. Like I'm not able to make it home to pick up the kids. She figures out a way to make it make it home. Back when I used to travel for work all the time, she picked up all the responsibility, all that burden. That stuff's huge because she was still working a full-time job and having to be a single parent most of the time when I was gone. So those are the 5 things for me.
That's awesome. And, there's and that list goes on. There's probably 500 things, 500 ways that our spouses and wives make us better. But that's just a little sample of how I think about my wife, how you think about your wife. And it's just a little appreciation in this podcast today to give them some long overdue credit. And I think that's rightfully earned and from them.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Kudos to our wives, and happy birthday to Ann Dean last week.
Absolutely. Now, let's hop into topic number 2, because we started with wives. We're just going to stay on this topic of spouses and parents in general. And the second topic that we really want to hop into is it's the importance of a 2-parent home. Now, in our previous podcast, we talked about the dad being in the picture. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of a 2-parent home. Dave, I'm going to let you start on this category, and then we can kind of go back and forth with it.
Yeah. This is a big one. I think that recently, in recent years, people have given up on marriages a lot easier, given up on relationships a lot easier than it ever used to be, and I think that's something that needs to stop, and we need to fight for those things. But I wanted to start with as fathers, being the role model that you want your kids to emulate and to see, right? So if you're married, the way you treat your spouse is so extremely important for both boys and girls. First, for boys, it's how it's how they see to respect a woman, how you treat a woman. And for girls, it's how they think women are treated and how they should be treated. So if you're treating your spouse like crap and you're not respecting her, you're not showing her appreciation, your daughter's going to think that that's how men treat women, and that's who she's going to go and find. Is that really who you want your daughter to be with? And for sons, it's the same thing. For boys, they see the way you talk to your wife, the way that you treat her and respect her. That's going to be how they treat women, not just their future girlfriends or spouses, but any woman that they come in contact with. And I think that's a big thing for us as we go through our life and how we live our life. It's so important to be that role model all the time, because if it's one thing I've learned is that kids are watching you every single moment of the day. And there's been moments in time where I wish I hadn't said something or acted a certain way or even given a facial expression because the kids saw it. And they will end up doing it or asking me about it afterwards. So just keep in mind that it is so important. And then on that same token, right, respecting your wife and being that role model, it's being there together and being in the trenches together, because it's damn hard. Parenting is hard, as I think everybody knows. And working together and being in the same house is so important. And we've talked about the statistics in the past. I'll throw a couple more, back at you just to refresh your mind. But with biological dads not in the home, okay, 7% less likely to graduate from high school, okay, 13% more likely to need mental health treatment, 71% more likely to have committed a crime. Those are some really big numbers. And there's some more big ones too. 43% less likely to graduate college, 33% more likely to have had sex before the age of 17, 94% more likely to use government welfare. And kids that don't have a biological dad in the house are making 26% less annually than kids that do. So, those numbers right there just show you how important it is to be in the home and present. Brett, I don't know if you have any more thoughts on sort of that piece of it.
Well, there's two things I want to touch base and kind of just follow up on what you said. The first thing I'm going to say is the kids are always watching, and I tell the girls all the time, because I love to chase Ann Dean around the house and slap her ass and pinch her and grab her and hug her and pick her up and all this dumb shit that I do. But I always tell, Madison, especially as she's getting older, I say, because I think it was Meg Meeker, one of the books by Meeker, your daughters usually like no one's bigger in their life than their father. And a lot of times when they find a partner, when they get married, like they're looking for someone as similar, as close as it is to their father. And so for me, I always say this, and I say it jokingly, but I say it seriously. I always tell Madison, especially, find yourself a husband that looks at you the way I look at mom. Find yourself a husband that chases you around the house and is always happy to be around as I do with mom, because it goes a long, long way. If there's always arguing going on in the household and this, that, and the other shit, your daughter may go down the path of where you don't want her to go. So that's the first thing I want to touch on, follow up on. And the second thing, you briefly mentioned it, but I want to dive a little deeper and I want your thoughts on it a little bit. I think people give up too soon now, whether it's financially, physically, spiritually, but for the context of our show today, I think people give up in their marriages far too soon. Whether it's another man or one, that's a shiny new object. I see it and it breaks my heart. There's one close to me right now that I'm seeing, and it is hurting me to see that. If you just fought a little freaking harder, if you just went on a little more dates, if you dated your spouse a little bit more, if you kept things, intimate and always putting each other first, there's no reason after you take your vows and you decide to marry whoever you choose to marry, that in 5 years or 10 years, you got a wandering eye or whatever the case is. But I just feel, and this is me speaking, I could be wrong. People fall out of love. I get it. Like it's a part of life. People fall out of love. But I just think people, everything societally now, like everybody just, they give up too early. They quit. You can't just quit your marriage. You can't just quit your job. You can't just quit staying healthy. You have to go all in. And when you sign that on a dotted line for a marriage, and if you're a religious person like Dave or myself, I mean, it's a sin, boy. And what are your thoughts on that? Maybe I kind of went off topic from what you were saying, but I kind of want to just get that out there. There's just too many quitters. There's too many dads out there that are dads and they're not fathers. Yeah, they're two totally different things, by the way.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And that's why I brought it up right at the beginning, because people do give up way too easy. And, you touched on a little bit, financial stress, financial money problems are the leading cause of divorce in America. Okay. But here's a stat for you. 1 in 10 married families suffer from economic distress. Okay. So 1 in 10 compared to half of all single mom families. So if you think that getting a divorce is going to make it better, it's not. The person, your spouse, when you put your wife out there, chances are she's going to struggle more because maybe, she hasn't worked as much during, while you guys were married. Maybe she wasn't prioritizing her career. Maybe she was prioritizing her family. So when she gets out into that situation, she's going to be broke. Your kids are going to have a harder time. So, financial problems, yes, while you're married, but you know what? You can fight through them together, and it's a conversation that you have to have. You've got to be on the same page. People do give up too soon. They give up on it. Like you said, you sign on the dotted line, especially being religious, like that is a sacrament, and you need to honor that sacrament. You're there to life and death. That is till death do you part. That is what it is about. And times get hard and things get challenging. And sure, there's all sorts of different things that come up. And you said it, right? Some people fall out of love. I understand it. And if that's what ultimately happens, and you've tried everything and gotten to that point, you still have an obligation to be a father. You're not just a dad. You're not just, oh yeah, I fathered that child over there. No, you're a father. You're an active part of your child's life. And now is more, I think in that situation, it's just as important, if not more important, to show respect for the mother of your children so that they see it, because the kids' lives are totally in upheaval and thrown upside down. Acting appropriately, being that role model, doing things that your kids would, someday, recognize as being honorable, and not doing stuff that's disrespectful to their mother and to your wife at one point. So like co-parenting, right? If you do end up getting divorced and separating, being able to co-parent and be there for each other to still fight those battles and work together, because kids will pit they'll pit each other, the parents against each other, and they'll make that situation awful. So I never understand it, because I'm like, at one point you were in love, right? You fell in love, you got married, you had kids. So why can't you make it work so that you could just have a cordial relationship, be there for your kids, and move on with your lives? Like, I just don't get it. We just had a friend out here last week, and her and her ex-husband are great friends. Mm-hmm. And it's great for the boys, because she said, you know what, her boys, they don't live together as a family anymore, but they still birthdays together. And they you know, her ex goes on vacations with part of her family still with the boys. So like, I just don't understand why more people can't just be mature about it and figure out a way to make that work. Because it's the numbers don't lie. It's just so important.
Yeah. It pisses me off, to be honest with you, because you mentioned a line there where they pit the kids against the parents. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. If you're that person, you're an asshole, because you chose to be a parent. You and your wife at the time chose to be parents together. And if you're now using your kids as leverage or whatever the case may be, you're an asshole, period. I have nothing else to say. There's no sugarcoating that, because your number one job is to be a freaking parent. Once you have kids, you become second. You no longer become, you fall from that top spot. You know, when you become married, you should be a one, in my opinion. The second you have a kid, you instantly fall to number two, and that kid elevates to number one. And every other kid that you have after that, whether you have one kid or four, they all become number one. And if you don't have the decency to give that kid an upbringing or try hard, whether, like you said, you fall to love, oh well, and you tried and you tried and you tried, it didn't work out. Okay. I understand that. But if you aren't working together to give your kids the greatest creation that God could ever bestow upon me, is to be a dad. If you can't work together and figure it out for the kids, you're both idiots. All right. And if it's only one side, you're the bigger idiot. But if, and this is a hypothetical, but if Andy and I ever got divorced, those kids, my girls, will still be the first thing, number one, most important. And I will work my ass off with her to make sure that they're taken care of. But this get divorced, give up, get a new girlfriend, get a new boyfriend, mixed bag of bullshit. Just get over yourself. Wake up. It's tough. Have a hard conversation with yourself. It's just a conversation that you're avoiding to have with yourself because you're too weak to go over it. And you're too weak to have a sit-down discussion with your spouse or your ex-spouse at the kitchen table and figure out what it's going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And listen, understand there's different situations, right? You get scorned by someone, and, it's hard to see past some of the things that maybe your ex-spouse has done to you in the past. But again, like you said, the children become the number one priority as soon as they're there. As soon as they come out, they're the number one priority. And, giving them, like you said, giving them the life, giving them the opportunities to succeed and to see what life should be like, what family should be like. They're looking at you, whether you're married, divorced, whatever, talking, not talking. They see all of it. And they're gonna treat you differently based on that. And if they see you, dad, acting like an asshole to mom, you know what? It's probably what they're gonna tolerate when they get older.
Yep.
And that's not okay, because that's how these problems happen. And we just keep going down this rabbit hole of destruction that's sort of happening with the nuclear family and what is coming with that. And it's just not okay.
Absolutely. And if you're a single dad, we have single dads that listen to the show. And the whole point of being a full force father is to be financially, faithfully, and physically fit. And that's the most important thing. So whether you're married and that's what happens, or you're divorced and that's what happens, or if you're a single dad and that's what happens, you still have to give 110% every day as a parent first before every other obligation in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No doubt about it.
It's the two-parent thing, co-parenting. There's a million different ways to flip it. Dave and I just kind of went over a bunch of different ways and probably sound a little bit confusing. At the end of the day, kids are always number one. Figure it out. But try a little bit harder. Deep down inside, you married that person. Try a little bit harder.
Mm-hmm.
Got anything else on that one, Dave, before we keep on moving on?
No, man, let's hit the book recommendation. I can't wait to chat about this one.
Before the book recommendation,
Oh,
Little House Cleaning. We're
Okay.
going back north. Can you believe it? We're going back to Connecticut for a wedding. I'm terrified.
have fun.
The only good thing is it won't be dead middle of winter and it won't be the dead middle of summer.
It's true. Yeah, you're going back a little bit before the leaves change
Yeah.
color too, so that kind of sucks.
Yeah, it's a
'Cause
little.
that's the best time. That's the best time.
Yeah,
there.
we're going in about 3 weeks. It's a little soon, but we are going to make a trip up to Vermont when we get there. My buddy's growing up high school friend's got a cottage we used to go to when we were in middle school. We're super pumped. And then the other house cleaning item, day 52 for me. Where you at?
Day 45.
So yeah, we're a week apart.
Yep.
So, and I do want to give a shout out to a dad that listens to the show, Carp. He doesn't like any attention, but he's been doing 75 hard. He's 9 days behind me, and that dude is down over 30 pounds. So don't get mad at me for the shout out. Carp is down over 30 pounds, doing 75
Carp.
hard, living a full force life. So that's just a quick shout out to Carp. And now we're going to go to the book recommendation. You got anything to say to Carp?
Bring it. Oh man, he's been battling. He's had some stuff going on. He just went on vacation. He's still sticking with it. That's the most impressive part. He's, through everything that's happening, he's still locked in. I miss him out here too. He left right before you did.
Yeah.
So, can't wait to see him at some point and see the transformation he's made because I hear great things on the phone.
I can't wait to hear the phone call afterwards because he has no idea we're dropping him in the podcast like that. So I can't wait. I can't wait for the phone call. I can't wait for the phone call. So, anyways, on to the book recommendation. Can you see that, Dave?
Yep.
This book is called Not My First Rodeo. Lessons from the Heartland by Governor Kristi Noem. Hell of a lady. Hell of a mom. And listen, I'm not biased to what I read. I love nonfiction. I love memoirs. I love autobiographies. I love self-help books. Andine got this book when it came out a couple months ago. It is a very quick read. And and this is something I've always said about books, I love when I read a book written by someone that you've heard talk before because it makes the book that much better to read. You hear them speaking the words back to you as you do it, right? And this one, So anyways, couple of quick notes. And this one, actually, it really makes me touch on Full Force Fathers. So Kristi Noem is one of four. And the most common theme throughout this book is she talks about her father and how important he was in her life. And all the lessons he instilled in her as a young girl on a ranch, chasing cows, chasing horses, doing rodeos, working the farm. And it just sets it in stone how important you are, Dave, I am, how important we are as fathers. And her father, unfortunately, passed away very, very young. I think 42 years old. And now she's got her kids, and there's just so many life lessons in this book that she learned from her father that she still passes on to her kids. And it's just a really, really good read from a really, really good person. And she's a boss, dude. She's a boss mom. She was in Congress for 8 years before she became the governor of South Dakota. I highly doubt anyone's going to come close to her in this year's election. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure she's going to smoke whoever the Democrats put against her, and rightfully so, because she's awesome. So, not my first rodeo. Go out, read it, buy it for your wife. There's a good idea. Date night, slip this book under her pillow or something. Give her a little gift, and let your spouse read it. It's a good book.
Absolutely.
So, with that, guys, we appreciate you listening to episode 24. Dave, I'll let you do the honors of sending us off.
Yeah, everybody, thanks for checking us out, listening. If you like the show, please like, share, comment, interact. We love all of it. Get the word out about Full Force Fathers. Keep living the full force life. If there's anything you took from this show, show your wife some appreciation. Go out and buy her some flowers, cook her dinner. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money. Just write her a love note and leave it under her pillow like Brett said. It can be very simple. So get out there, live the full force life, and we will talk to you soon.